What is up, clean freaks and filthy friends alike? Filthy Dan coming at you for another film discussion, and tonight we're going to be taking a look at a slasher that is also a haunted house horror with a little bit of fraternity hazing thrown in for good measure. That is, of course, 1981's Hell Night. Pray for Day. So Hell Night came out in 1981. It was directed by Tom DeSimone, not to be confused with the character portrayed by Joe Pesci in Goodfellas. Slight name alteration, but not that guy either. Stars Linda Blair, Vincent Van Patten, and Peter Barton. Linda Blair, for those of you who don't know, most of you do know, was Reagan in The Exorcist, and Peter Barton is the pretty boy who gets his face crushed in the shower by Jason Voorhees in Friday the 13th Part 4. So a nice little bit of a horror alumni there. And for those of you who may have grown up in the early to mid 2000s, Peter Van Patten was on the World Poker Tour. He may have been one of the commentators. I can't remember off the top of my head. But this was a interesting little flick. I had zero interest in watching it way back when I first came across it, which was about 10 years ago. Just kind of totally overlooked it and watched like 5 minutes of it and called it quits. But I decided to revisit it very recently, and it was in preparation for my 1981 episode of In the Flesh, and I found myself actually enjoying this one. I checked it out because it's a slasher from 1981, which of course was the topic of that episode. And this one actually, it did more right than wrong for me. But let's talk about what the film is about before we get that far. Now, this one is about a group of college kids who are trying to get into a fraternity, and it's part of the hazing initiation ritual that they spend the night in this manor. I think they called it the Garth Manor, and essentially they got to stay the night over there on what they're calling Hell Night. And the house is the site of a grisly murder that took place 12 years ago. A man killed his whole family and himself, but maybe he missed somebody. But these kids are staying in that house. Of course, the older fraternity members are going to be trying to play a little prank on them, in which they hear screaming and thudding and see dead bodies all across the house. Now, all this is all fine and dandy until you find out that the deformed mongoloid surviving member of the family is still among them. And he starts to kill off the hazers before he makes his way to our cast of victims that include Peter Barton and Mr. Van Patten, and Linda Blair has to kick some fucking ass to get out alive. That's the most basic way to explain the plot of this one. I like that this one kind of went for... You can see that they wanted to go with a little bit of a gothic tone, and that's apparent with the costumes that some of these kids are wearing. Especially Linda Blair and Peter Barton's characters, they both have that gothic attire. And that's something that Tom DeSimone wanted. He didn't want for them to be these kids in a haunted house wearing jeans and t-shirts. He wanted it to be very, very classy, if you will. And that's one thing I actually appreciate, was bringing in that gothic element. Because this mansion is fucking... It's like something out of the Universal Gothic films. I really do enjoy the design of the house in this film. It's got a lot of nice dark shadows to get real atmospheric with, and they mostly don't waste their atmosphere with that. I mean, they really execute the atmosphere pretty well for my dollar. One thing I did take a little bit of issue with was the kills. Now, while the kills, they really tried very hard to make these kills really good, and you can tell. Because they went and did the blue balls kills where you don't see much of the kills. You get a couple of them on screen, but for the most part, every other kill is relegated to being off screen. You don't see the penetration. You get a little bit of the mess afterwards, but you don't see the penetration. When you're looking at these older slashers, that's what you want. Unless there's a little bit of character development, which makes you forgive that. And there was a little bit of character development in this film. Linda Blair's character, you get a good backstory on her where, yeah, she's this nice middle-class girl. What's she doing mixed up with this fraternity of rich asshole kids? And she says, hey, she's just trying to get ahead in life and doing what anybody would. And I like that they fleshed her character out a little bit. And you get that when she's talking with Peter Barton's character. They're really kind of talking to each other. He's from the uppity rich society where it's like, yeah, my father is, kind of owns this fraternity just a little bit. He's one of those guys, but he's not a dick about it. He's actually, you feel like he's trying to change that flow of his family. But you really actually get to know the characters is what I'm getting down to with this. Even the characters that you don't get to spend a lot of time with being Seth and Denise, they're mostly just relegated to trying to get their rocks off, which, spoiler alert, is a poorly executed sex scene for my filthy bucks. But we'll get to that, won't we? So yeah, the gore, very minimalistic. I didn't really check the budget on this film, but if I do remember, it was a lower budget, as many of these films were at this time period. In fact, this one was made by Compass International, produced by Irwin Yablans, who did Halloween in '78, and I think he also did Terror Train. I may be wrong on Terror Train, but he definitely did Halloween in '78. In fact, this was the last film that Compass did, if I'm not mistaken. But it's also cool that you get Frank Darabont and Chuck Russell doing some executive producing, and I think executive and associate producing on their part. So that's a really cool little credit fact here. But yeah, the characters I didn't mind, and they really kind of made up for the lack of the carnage candy. And I do like that this film also, it takes the slow burn approach where, again, you get to spend time with these characters and you come to like them a little bit. You come to dislike, or maybe like if you're into the fucking tomfoolery shenanigans and all that dumb shit going on with the fraternity president and his little partner and girlfriend. Like, they're fucking around trying to set up these traps, and before they could even really start setting the traps in an effective way, they get slaughtered. And that's fucking great, because it's like, one of the rules in a slasher film is you do not want to be a prankster. That is an unofficial rule. It is courtesy of Joe Bob Briggs. The practical joker must die. And that's exactly what these fuckers are. One character moment I really do like, though, is when Seth, one of the guys who's trying to get his rocks off, sees that the girl he's trying to spend some time with is dead. She's been decapitated. We, again, don't see it, but we see her severed head laying in the bed where they were trying to get their fuck on, which, again, was nothing more than just heavy foreplay. But he's trying to leave, and he decides to go to the police station, and fucking valiant effort on his part. Valiant fucking effort. We all know that police in horror films, especially in slasher films, are utterly useless fucking characters. But my man Seth fucking tries. He tries his damnedest. He goes in there and says there have been murders at Garth Manor. And of course the deputy's like, oh, you stupid fucking college kids. There's always a murder over at the Garth Manor, blah, blah, blah. Get out of here or you're spending 30 days in jail. He fucking tried. But where I really come to like Seth is when he runs into the little fucking evidence room, which is easily accessible to the public. We all know that's common knowledge. You can just walk right into a fucking evidence room. Grabs a fucking shotgun, gets it loaded, jumps out the window. Clean getaway. It's really funny though because you can actually see him escaping. Like you get a clear fucking view of it from the lobby of the police station, and that I don't know. I just thought that was some goofy shit coming on, but I can't complain. It's like, hey, fuck you guys. They're useless fuckers anyway, so not like they would have known. But he goes back to fucking Garth Manor, even steals a fucking car to get there, and tries to save his friends. Again, great fucking effort on his part. When we see him trying to play hero, this is where he drops the ball for me a little bit, but still, loving his effort. Shoots the killer. Once. Falls into the water. Shoots him, I think, one more time. But of course, he never takes that fucking headshot that we all know is what you need to do to kill the killer. I yelled at him. But because he's a fictional character in a movie made 40 years ago, he did not hear my calls of common sense in his direction. Can I blame him? No. You'd think a man would fucking stay down if you hit him once with a shotgun. But, he goes in, tries to save them. Obviously fails. This is where the scene where his character dies is where I think they went a little weird, but they kind of went against the grain of what I was expecting. Because you get this nice fucking overhead shot. Fucking little, like you got the fucking corners, totally dark shadow. Little beam of light. See Seth right there? I killed him! I killed the killer! And you're expecting the killer to jump out of the shadows. No. He jumps out of the fucking beam of light. He didn't cast a shadow, but I'm not gonna fucking complain about that. They went against my expectation there. I'm like, he's gonna come from the left or the right. No, he comes from the fucking top part of the screen. Of course kills him off screen. Fucking, that's already a complaint I've voiced for this film. And then you're just down to Linda Blair and Peter Barton at this point, and they're trying to outrun the killer, and they kind of had a little back and forth with the underground tunnels and secret passages around the house. But yeah, they're coming to terms with the fact that they might as well be pretty fucked at this point. But yeah, of course Linda Blair proves victorious by the end. Because with the car that fucking Seth stole to get there, she manages to access the car, accidentally fucking reverses instead of going forward, knocks the fucking gate over. And it's one of them old-timey gates with the fucking spikes on the top, that killed Oscar in Halloween 2018. Like, gates like that. These real nice, beautiful gothic gates. Fucking knocks those down, fucking so they're slanted forward. Killer's on top of her car. I was expecting him to be in the back seat, so good job, movie. You got me there. But he's fucking bashing his forehead in the windshield and trying to bust through there to get her. She fucking does great fucking screaming and non-steering driving. But eventually finds a way to fucking flip a 180. Drives the car right at the fucking gate. Impales the killer. And you see her wake up the next morning and the killer's still impaled on the car. Dead as disco. Yeah, that's funny because this movie's from 1981. But no, fucking the killer's dead as disco at this point. Yeah, and the movie just kind of ends with her walking into the day. I was expecting one last scare from the killer. I was really, really in the book of Randy for this one, and there were a couple times where Randy was wrong. But no, overall, I'd say Hell Night did pretty good with its scares. Again, it dropped the ball in the gore. I'm not going to complain too much about that. There's plenty more gore to go around in other great slashers. But yeah, again, my favorite thing in this film was probably the characters and the character development. That's probably the main reason why I didn't turn it off. The tone and the mood, the atmosphere, those were mostly spot on for me. The music was so-so. I mean, it could have been better. it's your typical early 80s slasher fare with, in terms of a score. Nothing special for me by any means, but, again, enjoyable for what it was. Um, yeah, but what was really cool though, one piece of character detail was earlier when Linda Blair's talking about being this middle class girl. She mentions that her dad owned a shop, and she developed mechanic skills. When the car doesn't want to fucking start for her, she fucking gets out, opens the hood, fucking fixes whatever the fuck the issue was. I'm not a mechanic myself, so I couldn't fucking tell you. But she gets that fucking car going. And I'm like, fucking brilliant right there. I don't know, it's just little character moments like that that they managed to bring back and find a way to make it plot relevant. Fucking bingo amazeballs. Yeah, that's just something I wanted to bring up real fast. And the look of the killer in general I thought was pretty cool. The idea of a surviving member from of a family that fucking was mass murdered years ago, about 12 years ago in the film, coming back and being not dead. He's got his whole fucking family's corpses down in his basement and shit. That was actually a pretty eerie shot. But the killer's very deformed, but, kind of basic. The effect actually looked pretty good, and that's probably where I'm guessing most of the makeup budget went to. But apparently it was played by two different stuntmen, both just really tall German men who were uncredited in the film, so kudos to you guys. You guys did pretty well with what you were given. Aside from the backstory, the killer has absolutely zero development. And I don't even honestly remember if he even had a motive. But I think it was just really a territorial thing, just like how some could argue Jason Voorhees is. But, outside of all that, I mostly enjoyed this film for the most part. But before we fucking continue, let's move on to the filthy fucking features, alright? As always, we start with my favorite kill. And my favorite kill in Hell Night, it might just be the killer because it's... Or no, you know what? There's actually one kill I liked more than the killer's death. And it was this fucking... It was one of the hazing older frat members. This gentleman, he's trying to rig up a fucking skeleton device to fucking drop on the other characters. Now, what he gets is... He's one of those guys... Here's the killer coming up to him. He doesn't know it's the killer, but he hears noises in the background. Little rustle there, little over there. And this motherfucker has the audacity to turn around and whisper, "Who's there? Who's there?" In a fucking whisper. I get you're trying to be quiet to set up fucking traps, but you don't whisper who's there if you think somebody's fucking coming at you. That fucking irritated me, so I was really happy when this man walked into the killer and gets a fucking Freddy vs. Jason headspin going on. Maybe an Exorcist reference. Linda Blair. But gets his head fucking twisted around to where it's his fucking chin's at the fucking base of his spine there. Top of his spine. I made myself redundant there. But no, he gets his fucking head twisted around, fucking 180, drops, and gets a little bit of blood out the mouth. So that was a pretty cool kill. The killer had a pretty cool death too, getting impaled on the fence off the top of the car. As far as smutty sightings go, you know what? This movie really fucking disappointed me with that quite a few times. And I was expecting there to be a good amount of it. You get Seth and Denise having their heavy foreplay. You get the implication of sex. You get like that in the blanket sex where they're not really even fucking doing nothing. Got their fucking clothes on and they're like, "Oh, that was good." I didn't even see a single fucking tit in this film. Alright? No, you don't see any exposed tits. I was looking for tits in this movie. I mean, the ones that you could see glimpses of with the fucking skimpy costumes. They all looked like they had amazing smutty potential, but none of them did. Anyway, that was the smutty sightings. Quite disappointing, eh? But in closing, Hell Night was a mostly enjoyable slasher. It's I wouldn't recommend it to anybody unless you're really a diehard slasher fan. It's one that is it's easily skippable, but it's a fun camp. Yeah, I'd call it 80s camp. But it's fun if you're just looking for a old slasher movie, if you want to dig deep into the echelon of the lost slashers. That's the only time I'd really recommend this one. I'd give it a skip for the most part. I mean, for the general viewers, you can totally bypass this one. But yeah, I kind of enjoyed it for the most part. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. It's one I'd probably revisit frequently, like every year and a half, 2 years. My favorite part was watching Linda Blair really walking around, because she was fucking gorgeous in this. And man, you want to talk about a fucking dick tease. Linda Blair in this, man, was playing hard to fucking get with pretty boy Peter Barton. As always, thank you guys for watching. Please be sure to like and share this video, and if you have not already, stab the fuck out of that subscribe button. And if you're feeling extra filthy, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Would you guys spend the night in a fucking haunted house just to get into a fucking fraternity? I say fuck no. I didn't go to college. Except for a couple semesters of community. Been Filthy Dan. And as always, thank you guys, and stay filthy.